The early morning light filtered through the blinds of the hospital room as Johnny Depp sat donating blood. His mind wandered to his busy schedule waiting outside the quiet moment. But for now, he was just a man doing something meaningful. As the nurse finished up, she mentioned it was rare to see celebrities during National Blood Donor Month. Johnny shrugged it off humbly. Stepping out into the hallway, he checked his messages. A potential comeback role demanded his attention. As he exited the hospital, a movement caught his eye, two small girls lingering in an alley. Something about their fragile frames made Johnny pause. Crossing the street, details became clear: sunken cheeks, ragged clothes, nervous eyes. They were twins, alone and desperate. "Please sir, can you spare some money?" the younger one asked. Johnny handed them a bill for food, noticing the putrid smell from the bag one clutched. Before he could ask, a raspy voice shouted from the alley. The girls flinched and disappeared. Johnny remained rooted in worry and questions. Homeless people emerged, jostling him as they passed. He realized following the girls unprepared could be dangerous given his celebrity. Instead, he waited nearby, determined to see if they'd return. Time crawled as Johnny kept watch, ignoring the bustle around him. Finally, the twins emerged, heading back to the hospital. Following discreetly, he watched them meet a nurse at a side door. A quick exchange, the smelly bag for a new one, a bottle of meds, a hug. Needing to know more, Johnny approached them again, offering his uneaten food and juice. Hunger overrode caution as they accepted. Johnny gently asked their names and situation. Rose explained haltingly, they lived in the alley with their sick mom and others. "Mom and my sister Rena need the bags. The nice nurse gives meds but it's not enough. Mom says Rena can be normal like me someday but it's expensive." Johnny's heart clenched. He wanted to help but needed the full picture. Carefully, he asked to speak to their mother. The girls were unsure. Most people were gone begging, but there was Uncle Teddy, the alley's self-appointed keeper who extorted others. If he was sleeping, they could sneak Johnny to their tent. Putting his sunglasses back on, Johnny steeled himself. "Lead the way, girls. I'll follow." Entering the dim alley, senses assaulted by smells of decay, Johnny matched the girls' careful steps. They slipped past piles of debris and tattered shelters with ease, a testament to skills no child should need. Johnny's heart ached at the thought. Each shadowed turn revealed more makeshift dwellings as they ventured deeper into this hidden world. The alley's end remained elusive. With mounting unease about what lay ahead, Johnny pushed on, resolved to help however he could. The stench grew overpowering as Rose motioned for them to stop. "We're getting close to Uncle Teddy's tent," she whispered. "We have to be super quiet now." Johnny nodded, his senses on high alert. They inched forward, breaths held, each crunch of debris underfoot sounding unnaturally loud in the tense silence. As they navigated a particularly narrow passage, Rose suddenly froze, throwing an arm out to halt Johnny and her sister. From just around the corner, a gruff voice cut through the air, accompanied by the clinking of bottles. Uncle Teddy was awake. Rose shot Johnny a panicked look, gesturing frantically for him to hide. Johnny scanned the surroundings, spotting a small crevice created by a collapsed cardboard shelter. He squeezed himself into the tight space, barely daring to breathe as heavy footsteps approached. Well, what have we here?" Uncle Teddy's voice boomed, far too close for comfort. "You girls out collecting for your ma again?" "Why yes, Uncle Teddy," Rose stammered, her small body angling protectively in front of Rena. "We got some food and medicine from the nice people." Uncle Teddy grunted, and Johnny could picture his looming figure eyeing the girls with suspicion. "You know the rules. I get a cut of anything you bring in. Gotta pay for my protection." Johnny's blood boiled at the blatant exploitation, his hands curling into fists in the tight confines of his hiding spot. It took every ounce of restraint not to burst out and confront the man. "We don't have much this time," Rose pleaded, her voice trembling. Rena really needs her medicine. Mama's getting worse. Not my problem, Uncle Teddy cut her off harshly. You don't get something for nothing in this world. Now hand it over. There was a rustle as the girls reluctantly relinquished some of their meager supplies. Johnny's heart shattered at the unfairness of it all. That's more like it, Uncle Teddy said, satisfied. Now scram. And don't let me catch you holding out on me again, or there'll be consequences. The girls scurried away, and Johnny held his breath as Uncle Teddy's heavy tread receded. He counted to 60 before cautiously extracting himself from the crevice, every muscle aching from the cramped position. Rose and Rena were waiting anxiously nearby, their faces pinched with worry and fear. I'm so sorry, Rose whispered, her eyes glistening. We didn't know he'd be awake. Johnny crouched down, taking the young girl's hands in his own. You have nothing to apologize for, he said firmly. What that man is doing to you and the others here is wrong. I'm going to do everything I can to help, I promise. Rena hugged her sister, burying her face in Rose's shoulder. Johnny's resolve hardened. He couldn't stand by and let these innocent children suffer any longer. Take me to your mother, he said, standing up. It's time we had a talk about getting you all out of here. The girls led him through a few more winding turns before stopping outside a ramshackle tent cobbled together from tarps and scavenged materials. Rose ducked inside, murmuring softly to someone within. A moment later, she emerged with a gaunt woman who looked far older than her years. Johnny's heart clenched as he took in her sunken cheeks, matted hair, and the unmistakable bulge of a colostomy bag beneath her tattered shirt. Who are you? The woman asked warily, her eyes flickering between Johnny and her daughters. What do you want with us? Johnny removed his sunglasses, meeting her gaze with open sincerity. My name is Johnny, he said gently. I met your girls earlier today, and they told me a little about your situation. I want to help in any way I can. The woman's eyes widened in recognition, her mouth falling open. Johnny Depp, she whispered incredulously. Is it really you? He nodded, offering a small smile. In the flesh. Though I wish we were meeting under better circumstances. Tears welled in the mother's eyes as she clutched at her daughters. I can't believe it. I never thought. Johnny reached out, placing a comforting hand on her shoulder. Believe it. You're not alone anymore. We're going to figure this out together. And so, in the depths of that alley, an unlikely alliance was formed, a Hollywood star and a homeless family, united by a common goal and the unshakable belief that everyone deserved a chance at a better life. As they settled into the cramped tent, Johnny took a moment to assess their surroundings. The space was barely big enough for the four of them, with tattered blankets serving as makeshift beds and a few precious belongings scattered about. A single battery-powered lantern cast a dim glow, throwing shadows on the tarp walls. The mother, who introduced herself as Sarah, began to share their story. She spoke of losing her job and subsequently their apartment when her health declined, of the daily struggle to find food and shelter while managing her debilitating illness. I've tried to get help, Sarah said, her voice heavy with exhaustion. But without an address or proper documentation, it's nearly impossible. The waiting lists for housing assistance are years long, and most shelters won't take us because of my condition. Johnny listened intently, his heart breaking with every word. What about medical care? He asked gently. Surely there are programs or clinics that could help. Sarah shook her head sadly. The free clinics are overwhelmed. They can only do so much. I need surgery, proper medication, follow-up care. It's too expensive. She looked lovingly at her daughters, who were huddled together on one of the blankets. I worry most about them. They deserve so much better than this life. Johnny followed her gaze, taking in the way Rose and Rena clung to each other, their small faces lined with a weariness no child should know. His resolve hardened. Sarah, he said, leaning forward to catch her eye. I can't begin to imagine how difficult this has been for you and your girls. But I want you to know that you're not alone anymore. I have resources, connections. I'll do everything in my power to get you the help you need. Tears streamed down Sarah's face as she clasped his hand. I don't know how to thank you, she whispered. I never dreamed that someone like you would care about people like us. Johnny smiled softly, giving her hand a gentle squeeze. Everyone deserves care and compassion, regardless of their circumstances. You and your daughters are no exception. He turned his attention to the girls, who were watching the exchange with wide, hopeful eyes. Rose, Rena, I'm going to need your help too. Can you be brave and strong for your mama while we work on getting you a better place to live? The twins nodded solemnly, their small faces set with determination. We can be brave, Rose declared, sitting up straighter. We'll do whatever it takes. Johnny felt a swell of pride at their resilience. These children had endured so much, yet they still held on to hope. It was humbling and inspiring in equal measure. As they continued to discuss plans and possibilities, a sudden commotion outside the tent made them all freeze. Angry shouts and the sound of scuffling feet drew closer, and Johnny's heart sank as he recognized Uncle Teddy's booming voice. Where are those brats? He bellowed, his words slurred with intoxication. Thought they could hide from me, eh? I'll teach Em a lesson. Sarah's face paled, her hands trembling as she drew her daughters close. Oh God, he's coming for us, she whispered frantically. He must have seen you come in here. He won't stand for outsiders interfering. Johnny's mind raced as he assessed their options. They were cornered, trapped by the flimsy walls of the tent with an enraged man bearing down on them. He couldn't risk Sarah or the girls getting hurt. Stay here, he instructed firmly, rising to his feet. I'll handle this. Ignoring their protests, Johnny ducked out of the tent, squaring his shoulders as he faced the oncoming threat. Uncle Teddy stumbled into view, his bloodshot eyes zeroing in on Johnny with malicious intent. Well, what do we have here? He sneered, cracking his knuckles menacingly. Some rich boy thinks he can play savior. Not in my alley, pretty boy. Johnny held up his hands in a placating gesture, keeping his voice calm and even. I don't want any trouble. I'm just here to help Sarah and her kids. Uncle Teddy barked out a harsh laugh, spittle flying from his lips. Help? Nobody helps anyone here unless I say so. And I say it's time for you to learn your place. He lunged forward, meaty fists swinging wildly. Johnny ducked and weaved, using his agility to avoid the blows. Around them, curious faces peeked out from neighboring tents, drawn by the commotion. As Johnny tried to find an opening to subdue his attacker without causing serious harm, a sudden cry from behind made his blood run cold. Mama! Mama, wake up! It was Rena's voice, high-pitched and frantic with fear. Johnny's split second of distraction was all Uncle Teddy needed. A fist caught him in the temple, sending him sprawling to the ground as stars exploded across his vision. Through the ringing in his ears, he heard Sarah's daughters screaming for help, their pleas mingling with Uncle Teddy's enraged bellows. Johnny struggled to his feet, desperation lending him strength. He had to get to Sarah and the girls. He had made them a promise, and he would keep it, no matter the cost. With a roar of determination, he launched himself back into the fray, praying he wouldn't be too late. Johnny rushed to Sarah's side, restraining Uncle Teddy with a burst of desperate strength. The cries from the tent spurred him onward. He twisted the larger man's arm, forcing him to submit. It's over, Johnny declared. You won't hurt them anymore. Uncle Teddy thrashed and cursed, but Johnny held firm as curious onlookers emerged from their shelters to witness the scene. Call an ambulance. Johnny yelled. Sarah needs help now. A few residents pulled out phones to dial 911. Johnny prayed they would act fast as every second was critical. Sirens soon wailed in the distance. Leaving Uncle Teddy restrained, Johnny sprinted to the tent and found Rose and Rena kneeling beside their unconscious mother, who was barely breathing. The girls sobbed that she had suddenly collapsed. With tremendous relief, Johnny found Sarah had a pulse, though weak and thready. He promised the distraught twins the ambulance was coming and their mother would be okay. He held them close, whispering reassurances even as his own fears mounted. Paramedics soon arrived in a blur of activity, loading Sarah's frail form onto a stretcher. Johnny made the split-second choice to accompany the girls in the ambulance. They clung to him, weeping into his shirt, as he prayed silently for Sarah to pull through. At the hospital, doctors rushed Sarah away, leaving Johnny to comfort Rose and Rena in the waiting room. Minutes dragged into hours, but he did his best to distract the girls with stories and promises as they huddled together. Finally, a weary doctor emerged. "Family of Sarah Bennett?" Johnny stood, still holding the exhausted girls. "I'm with her daughters." "How is she?" The doctor hesitated before motioning them aside and speaking in a low voice. "I'm afraid her condition is quite serious. Advanced Crohn's disease, severe malnutrition and dehydration. She's currently in the ICU." Johnny's heart sank as he absorbed the dire news. Will she make it?" "The next 48 hours will be critical," the doctor said carefully. "But we're doing everything we can. She's a fighter." Johnny nodded numbly, looking down at Rose and Rena's terrified faces. They had already been through so much, endured more hardship than any child should ever know. He couldn't bear the thought of them losing their mother too. "Can we see her?" he asked hoarsely. The doctor agreed to a brief visit, leading them through the maze of hospital corridors. Sarah lay still and pale, hooked up to a tangle of tubes and wires that made Johnny's throat tighten. Rose and Rena approached the bed tentatively, their eyes wide as they took in the machines keeping their mother alive. Johnny squeezed their shoulders in silent support as they each took one of Sarah's limp hands in their own. "Mama?" Rose whispered. "We're here. Johnny's here too. You're going to be okay." Rena laid her head on the bed, her small body shaking with barely suppressed sobs. Johnny's heart broke anew. He knew then and there that no matter what lay ahead, he would not abandon this family. He would move heaven and earth to get Sarah the treatment she needed, to ensure Rose and Rena never spent another night hungry or afraid. Failure was not an option. These three precious lives were now inextricably tied to his own. He would fight for them with everything he had. As the machines beeped and whirred, Johnny bowed his head, silently vowing to be the beacon of hope Sarah and her daughters so desperately needed. Their road would be long and arduous, but they would walk it together. In that sterile hospital room, under the harsh fluorescent lights, an unbreakable bond was forged, one that would carry them through whatever storms lay ahead. Johnny looked down at the fragile family he held in his arms and felt a fierce wave of protectiveness wash over him. He didn't know what the future held, but he knew one thing for certain: Sarah, Rose, and Rena would never be alone again. As the days turned into weeks, Johnny remained a constant presence at the hospital. He worked tirelessly behind the scenes, calling in every favor, leveraging every connection to ensure Sarah received the best possible care. With proper treatment, Sarah slowly began to improve. The color returned to her cheeks, her breathing grew stronger. Rose and Rena spent hours by her bedside, reading stories and sharing dreams of a better future. Johnny, meanwhile, had been busy making those dreams a reality. He secured a modest apartment for the family, furnished it with all the comforts they had gone so long without. When Sarah was finally discharged, it was to a warm, safe home rather than the cold, unforgiving streets. But Johnny's support didn't end there. He enrolled the girls in school, hired tutors to help them catch up. For Sarah, he found a top specialist willing to take on her case pro bono. Slowly but surely, they began to rebuild their shattered lives. There were setbacks and challenges, moments when the weight of their trauma threatened to pull them under. But through it all, they had each other, and they had Johnny, their unwavering champion. One crisp autumn afternoon, Johnny took the family to a nearby park. As Rose and Rena raced ahead, laughing and carefree, Sarah turned to Johnny with tears in her eyes. "I don't know how to thank you," she said, her voice trembling with emotion. "You've given us a second chance at life. I can never repay what you've done." Johnny smiled, his own eyes suspiciously bright. "Seeing you and the girls happy and healthy is all the thanks I need. You've given me a gift too, you know. You've shown me what really matters." Sarah gazed at her daughters, marveling at the light in their eyes, the joy in their steps. "They're going to have a future now," she whispered. "A real future, filled with possibilities. And it's all because of you." Johnny shook his head. "No, Sarah. It's because of you. Your strength, your love, your determination. I just helped open a few doors. You're the one who walked through them." They sat in comfortable silence, watching Rose and Rena play, their laughter ringing out like the sweetest music. In that moment, Johnny knew with unshakable certainty that everything he had done, every sacrifice he had made, had been worth it. For in helping to mend this broken family, he had found a piece of himself he hadn't even known was missing. The road ahead wouldn't be easy. Sarah still had a long recovery ahead of her, and the girls would need time and patience to heal from their emotional wounds. But Johnny vowed to be there every step of the way, a steadfast anchor in the storm. For in that quiet park, on that ordinary autumn day, something extraordinary had taken root. A bond forged in the crucible of shared adversity, a love that transcended mere gratitude or obligation. They were a family now, in all the ways that truly mattered. And together, they would face whatever challenges the future held, secure in the knowledge that they would never walk alone again. As the sun began to set, casting the world in a warm, golden glow, Johnny felt a sense of profound peace settle over him. He had set out to change 3 lives, never imagining how profoundly they would change his own in return. But that was the beautiful thing about love, he mused. It had a way of sneaking up on you, of transforming your world when you least expected it. And as he looked at Sarah, Rose, and Rena, his newfound family, Johnny knew he would spend the rest of his days cherishing the precious gift he had been given. For in opening his heart to these 3 remarkable souls, he had found something far greater than fame or fortune. He had found home. And that was a role he would embrace with every fiber of his being, now and always.